How did you learn how to discern which notes to take and which ones to ignore?
Absolutely. Over my time writing, I've learned how to pick out the notes that really matter in a couple different ways. First, if it's a preference thing, I can usually ignore it because that's what someone else would do. They would say, hey, you know what would be cool? And you say, yeah, no, that would be cool, but that would be your script. So I'm going to keep this the way it is. But sometimes they have a good idea, and then you can just take it, and that's great because they offered it freely. Another thing that I look for is there confusion because of something I've done in the way I've structured the screenplay, or is there something I've forgotten to set up that was in a previous draft? Just if there's confusion that I can see is legitimate, then I know that I need to address that. But sometimes, and the third way that I'll know that a note really needs to be addressed is if it's actually the better version of the story. Because if you know your story really well and someone says, you know what should actually be happening here is this, that should make sense to you as a writer. You can see and say, yes, that's right. That's the movie I've been writing. I don't know why that's there. Your note is right on. And so that's how you can tell, yeah, that's a note I should listen to versus, yeah, that's somebody's preference. I don't need to do that. Or, you know, it's in a tough situation you might face when you're a working writer is they're the people that ultimately make the call on what the script is going to be. So if you're not going to apply the note, you're not going to be on the project. So then as a writer, it's your job to be creative and say, okay, how can I incorporate this note in a way that doesn't destroy what the screenplay is? And that is one of the most masterful skills that we can develop as writers, and that just comes with experience.
Do you ever fight for a note? Do you ever say, like, no, it needs to, I'm not going to change this, or I need to keep this here?
Thankfully, I've never had the situation where I had to die on a hill, so to speak, for a certain thing in the script. Although I've been in a couple times where someone will give me a suggestion, kind of seeing how I'm going to react to it, and I'll just say, no, because, and then I'll launch into an explanation, and they'll kind of back off because they realize that I really am attached to that. But I had a very interesting experience working with an actor who was giving notes and actually helped the screenplay become more of what it was meant to be. I had really highlighted some setups just to make sure nobody missed them, and he was like, yeah, tone those down. Like, the script isn't that kind of in your face. I'm like, that's amazing. That's wonderful. I love actors like that. So I try to be, when I'm given notes that I don't necessarily agree with, I always try to see the other person's point of view, like why they're saying it, what they're aiming for. Is it a purely commercial thing? Are they worried about like the end viewer? A lot of times then I know I can just sort of steer them away from it because they're worrying about something that you shouldn't worry about at this stage. But if I can kind of look into their perspective and say, why did they give that note? Where are we going with this? And I can see that their version in their head of what the movie could be is something that I could get down with. And I'll say, sure, I'll give that a try. Because I know it's a collaborative process. And at some point, I'm going to have to be open to ideas or it's just never going to get made. Like if I don't want to take notes, I should be a novelist. And even then, you have to talk to your editor, who's going to probably be kind of hard-nosed about it. So.